I've been running this world without you, with no help at all, one way to fall, living this nightmare all through. What's new? I'm making without you, with no help at all, one way to fall, living this nightmare all through. What's new? I'm making without you. I'm making without you. All I ever wanted was you, but you left me alone inside these empty, broken walls. And I can't see it clearly, but it's obvious. I know that you left me alone inside this empty, broken hall. And now you'll be the reason why my soul is tainted. Somebody help me, 'cause I'm feeling trapped and I don't know what to do. There's no one to save me from this hurt I feel deep within my bones.
Think of me and see the things I did. Sold my soul and everything I was to the lowest bid. Crawled into your poison dome yet every single time.
You got into my mind, you got into my mind. But all I ever wanted was you. But you left me alone inside these empty, broken walls. And I can't see it clearly, but it's obvious. I know that you left me alone inside this empty, broken hall. And now you'll be the reason why my soul is tainted. So how can I fix this? 'Cause I need to stop the aching in my head. My heart is breaking. Yeah, I'm tired of being stuck in the past.
Think of me and see the things I did. Sold my soul and everything I was to the lowest bid. Crawled into your poison dome yet every single time.
You got into my mind, you got into my mind. But all I ever wanted was you. But you left me alone inside these empty, broken walls. And I can't see it clearly, but it's obvious. I know that you left me alone inside this empty, broken
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Octane Online Racing Simrigs Sprint Series. We are live for the Asia Pacific Pro-Am Finals. This is the third and final round, and we have a bit of a nail-biting finish to bring to a conclusion today. So really excited to see how that goes. We are live at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona, and I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, none other than Mr. JLS, Jason and Scott. How are we, Jace?
Yeah, JP, very good, mate. Very well. How are you going in there?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm a little bit, I want to say moist. I'm so excited just to see how this is going to go. And we are just about to start qualifying. People are out on their first flying laps at the moment. So, yeah, really looking forward to this. As I mentioned in the intro, there's a very tight battle at the top of the Pro-Am class. So, be interesting to see who can come out on top of that.
So, who are we expecting to be, or what makes of cars are we expecting to be the fastest ones around Spain tonight, mate?
So, based on my very carefully curated data, the Porsche is still the fastest car around here in a single lap, but it is a bit of a dog in a race, especially on this long straight. The Ferrari, surprisingly, is the second fastest car here, and then it's fairly close between the Audi, the Honda, a couple of other cars, and then it looks as though the FR cars are a little bit down on pace here, so the Aston, BMW, those guys will struggle to get a better result. But yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting, and we have an interesting format on the race tonight. So it will be 80 minutes, and you have 2 mandatory pit stops where you have to change the tires. So it should be interesting to see what people are planning on their timing. And if it were you, what would you choose to do, Jace?
It'd probably be dependent on where I was in the championship standings, I suppose. I think on a garden variety one will be going 26, 27 minutes per stint and just splitting it in thirds. If you're probably a few points further back, I think you might try and mix it up maybe. I know the undercut here is hugely powerful, so do you try and get in after say 15 or 20 minutes and go longer for the last 2, or maybe even do you go the opposite way and run 40 to 45, 50 minute first stint and then just 2 short bursts at the end. It's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is. And I mean, we've got the top 6 in the standings are all in 6 different makes of cars, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they choose to do.
Yeah, no, certainly, and as you mentioned, 6 different cars in that top 6, and if we look at the standings, we have Mr. Stefan Bechtold himself in the Porsche, leading the standings, but he is merely 4 points ahead of Vladimir Malik, who is in the BMW, and they are followed closely by Lewis Kugli. He's about 40 points off of the leader, but yeah, he's looked like the fastest driver for the first 2 rounds overall, I would say. But obviously some errors and a couple of incidents and stuff has really sort of hurt his championship chances. And then Christopher Taylor is not too far behind that. It's basically up the top 6 are within 92 points. So, swings and roundabouts, something might happen, and there might be a big accident for some of the leaders or something. And Simon Scanlon, who's in the Ferrari, who's in the pound seats here, he could potentially still get onto that podium. If everything goes his way. So yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how everything plays out here.
As we can already see with some of the times coming in, what you were saying before with the Porsche at the top and then a couple of Ferraris in 3 and 4. So Chalmers kind of filling the gap there in the Beamer in P2, which is a great effort for him so far. But yeah, those car models you were talking about are finding their way to the top already. So as we see Stefan with a 1:43.8 is a pretty good, well, not banker, but pretty good second lap out, I would have thought.
It's a pretty good lap overall. I mean, I'm wondering what we're expecting to find here as a pole time. I mean, we can throw it over to chat to give us some predictions as well. I would hazard a guess and go for a 43.5. So let's see what chat has to say. Jace, your prediction for a pole time, please, sir.
I'm going to go with a 43.216. There we go. Not to be too specific, but 43.216 sounds good.
That'll be a spicy time. That's a very competitive time, even in the pro class. Here we see Vladimir Malik second in the championship, currently fourth, and he is only about 2 tenths behind the provisional pole setter. But as you can see by the green delta in the left-hand side up the top, he has about 3. Lost a little bit on the exit of turn 6 there, but turn 7. I can never remember the turn numbers here. I just know that I hate that corner he just went through. And he has been this lap off. I think he will dive into the pits, put on some fresh tires, and try again. There is still 8 minutes remaining in qualifying, so a long time to go. But yeah, what are our thoughts on Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona? Jace?
Don't mind it. I think with the changes that have been made for F1, so flattening out turn whatever it is, 10, the tight left-hander after the back straight, and then the changes removing the chicane would be great if they found their way to ACC, but given as though they haven't, sectors 1 and 2 are okay. Sector 3 I think can get firmly in the bin.
There we go, Christopher Taylor with a 43.5, so if nobody else can improve, that would be ideal in terms of my prediction. But yeah, I would agree with your assessment, apart from not the corner that Kugli is going through now, but the one he is approaching now. I think that is turn 9 in Formula 1 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a frustrating corner, so easy to invalidate on the exit there. But yeah, this final sector is just poo-poo. I really don't enjoy it. The chicane is so awkward. But yeah, we see Kugli here. He lost a little bit on the exit there. He's still half a second up. So that is provisionally very close to being enough to go pole. Will he be able to keep the momentum going through this very tricky final sector? Gains a bunch of time there. Coming down to the final corner. Fantastic final sector there for Lewis Kugli. Will this be enough for pole position? It looks as though that delta is holding solid, and he will improve to a 1:43.4. That is an absolutely rapid time. And he takes provisional pole position. Who else will be challenging for that pole position?
As we see Spidey heading through the sweeping right, already about a tenth up, less than a tenth up, heading through turn 4. You can find this a bit of a tricky corner to set up that little burst down to the tight left-hander as well. It's going to be very easy to understeer around there, particularly in the Aston that I drive. So, and also very easy to tram track here on the right-hand side if you get too much on that curb, on that ripple strip, it will just peel you straight into the fence. So, obviously invalidates there, and interesting camera work there.
Cameraman fell off his pouch through a bush, but everything is okay. You see Tom McDonald here. Oh, an absolute huge moment coming out of the second last corner there, and he bins an absolute stonker of a lap, so he will have to try again. He will have some spicy rear tires at the moment. But yeah, there's Stefan Bechtold still sitting in P3, Scandon right behind him. So those guys are where they need to be to secure their championship positions. Vladimir Malik will need to improve a little bit. So he had a bunch of time there and then lost most of it on the exit there off turn 5. Very tricky corner. And then 6 and 7. I think that's 7 and 8, right? So this is turn 9. Sorry,
yes, that's 7. That's 7 and 8. The sweeping here is the right-hander is 9, and the one they've modified for F1 down here, the tight left-hander, is 10. Then I think the numbers change for the GT3s and the F1 cars. It's yes, very technical corners that absolutely you bleed time if you don't get 100% right. It's with the short straight bursts down to the next corner. You can just if you're sitting there obsessed with your delta, you can just watch the time just dribble away as you don't quite get a corner right, and then there's a long time before you get to the next one to try and catch it up, particularly on the home straight here.
Absolutely, as we see, Malik comes across the line, goes into P3 ahead of Bechtel. That is where he needs to be. Unfortunately, he was on a 43 flat there, which is a little bit sad to see him bin that off. But here we see Brian Kong. I'm not sure if that will be enough to move him up many spots, but it should be enough to maybe potentially put him on the podium. He does go ahead of Vladdy Malik there, by a good old margin actually. So sorry, I was looking at the wrong numbers, but yeah, that is a good performance from him. Where is he sitting in our championship though? That is the question. He is not on the leaderboard, so I think he may have missed a couple of rounds.
It sounds right. I'm just looking at the list I've got here as well. I can't find him on there either. So good effort from. Yeah, Gorilla, you did. You heard I lost 43 flat. Be interesting to see if Vladdy can get back on that track again. He was 0.1 up there. Might just be having a little consolidation lap before having one last burst at it with a couple of minutes to go. They are some very, very competitive times, as Pete said. They'd be right up there in pro class tomorrow night. So just on that, what do we think the difference in pole time will be between Pro-Am and Pro? So, chat, can we have a guess how much difference do we think there'll be in the pole times between Pro-Am and Pro?
I'm gonna guess as we see Vladdy crosses the line, improves by a tenth, but not quite enough to move him up the leaderboard. He has enough time for 2 more laps there. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess we have to see what pole time in Pro-Ams is first, but I'm gonna guess I think we'll see a mid 42 in the pros for pole position, depending on the conditions. Obviously, if we're talking optimum conditions, then I think a 42.5 should be pole tomorrow.
A couple of guesses coming in: 5 to 6 tenths, 4 tenths, low 42s for Pro, 42.6. Yeah, all around the mark, I think. A full second, Keckley believes. So it's, that is super duper quick if you're going low 42s.
Absolutely. Stefan Bechtold has improved in 2P2, but Christopher Taylor does not want to let him have it. Let's see if the Delta plays in his part. He does go 2 100ths faster than Bechtold and moves back into P2. Googly, as we said, he's looked like the fastest driver through this Pro-Am championship, and he is proving that at the moment, but not by much. It's very, very close in the top 5 at the moment. We see Malik there. He does have a bit of time on that Delta. He's bled some of it away again and still improving. Let's see if he can put this final sector together. He will have enough time for 1 more lap if he does have to fuel. Problem with Barcelona is the tires just absolutely drop off after about 3 flying laps. He has not done enough to improve coming through the final sector, so he will have to go around 1 more time and hope that he can get some performance out of those tires and potentially move up the grid. Christopher Taylor had an absolute stonking first sector. He is almost 2 tenths up at the moment. Let's see if he can maintain this momentum on this lap and move back up into provisional pole.
Yeah, so just looking at Vladdy there, he's doing a 43.6, which at the moment is good enough for 5th, as scary as that is. But as we see Taylor coming through turn 10, a little bit of a wobble there, dropped off about 0.1 of a second. Still 0.25 up as we're heading down to everybody's favourite chicane in ACC. See what kind of run he gets out through here. Not too bad. Oh, I clipped the curb on the inside. That'll knock off a little bit of time. Might knock off that 43.2, but a 43.3 is still possible. Maybe not. Yeah, still very quick though, 43.4.
He does improve, but unfortunately for him, Googly did improve on the previous lap and did a 43.382 there. So Jesse McLean takes the eSport line into the sand and he invalidates Vladdy Malik here. He has about 3 or 4 more corners to go. Can he put this final sector together? Doesn't have the Delta at the moment, but he did have a pretty poor final sector on the previous lap. Can he improve on it? Gains a little bit of time through there. Will we see the delta go green? It goes green, but he clobbers the curb, clobbers the other curb, and that will lose him all of that time.
And just semi-practice at the pit entry to get out of the way. So that might just be about it. One more car left is Crispy Bacon, Mr. Lewis, coming through the chicane sector. He's showing a good improvement here, about 0.4, 0.3 up on his previous best. Be good enough to jump quite a few positions, I hear, if he pulls up 0.3.
Should move into 26th, I think. He does, 26.
Indeed he does. And bright and shiny at the moment, which is very disappointing for everybody involved. But it is an 80-minute race, so lots of things could change.
Yeah, I don't think, based on that weather forecast, I'm not sure we will be seeing much rain. But just to confirm your grid for you, we have Lewis Kugeli in pole position in the Aston Martin, Christopher Taylor with the Honda, Stefan Bechtold on the Porsche, Brian Kong in a Ferrari, Vladdy Malik in the BMW, Simon Scanlon in another Ferrari, Pete Chalmers with a BMW, Mike Donaldi in a McLaren, Pete Viney in the BMW, and Ashley Johnston in the McLaren. So good mix of cars in the top 10 there. What's that, 4 or 5 different manufacturers? So good to see being a little bit sort of mixed up, and surprising to see the McLaren that far up, given its current state of performance or lack thereof.
Indeed. So if we have a look at where everybody is in the standings at the moment, so Kugeli is third on pole. Taylor is fourth, so that's an interesting little battle there. Stefan's obviously currently leading. You've got Brian Kong, who, as we mentioned before, is not in the top 20 as far as we can find. Vladdy is second in the championship, 4 points behind Stefan, and he's going to be right behind him on the grid. So Stefan will be the car in front of Vladdy. And then you've got Spidey, or Simon Scanlon, in P5 in the championship, is sitting P6 on the grid. So it's going to be a battle of all the main players in the championship through the first corner. The top 6 are all involved, or top 7 are all involved. Very interesting. Very nicely set up.
Yeah, really looking like it's going to be a spicy old battle. And as we all know, Spain and turn 1 always goes particularly well. So it's a very, very tricky first couple of corners. First corner itself is rather innocuous, but it goes directly into the second corner, and that is where you generally see quite a pile up. And one of the biggest issues here is how far back that you start. So it's a very, very long run into turn 1, and that is where Kugeli is going to have a bit of an issue. The Aston are not exactly known for its acceleration, and the Porsche is quick off the line, but it gets absolutely swamped by the end of the straight here as well. So yeah, gonna be an interesting sort of push into turn 1. We're gonna see most likely a couple of 3, possibly 4 wides. Hopefully everybody keeps their wits about them and we don't see too many incidents, and everybody can get away clean, and we can actually have a proper fight throughout the race without somebody losing out on lap 1.
That's exactly right. I mean, 80-minute race, there's a lot of racing to be done. Survive turn 1, you've got turn 2 to worry about. And then everybody kind of just settles down around the sweeping right. And then once you get to turn 4, as we see the cars pull away on their formation lap, P4 and certainly P5, the tight left-hander can be very much a pinch point on the first couple of laps as people try and improve their positions quite quickly. So yeah, it's just a matter of trying to survive that first lap, find a nice gap or a nice rhythm, and then just take it from there and put yourself the best possible position during the race.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, these guys, they're pro-ams, but all of them are fairly experienced drivers. So last week we saw a very clean race overall. You know, not a lot of incidents. So hopefully we can continue that along. Mathematical chances for the championship: Bechtold, Malik, Kugeli, Taylor, Scanlon, McLaws, Johnston, and Scani. So fair old chunk of drivers still in with a theoretical chance of taking this championship. Obviously some of them are fairly long shots and would require quite a lot of bad luck for some of the drivers ahead. But as you said, all the drivers who needed to perform well in qualifying did so to varying degrees in terms of setting themselves up for taking the championship.
Absolutely, and a big shout out too to the two invited AMs who've done so well in this series as well. Williamson and Stimson have been an absolute asset to this Pro-Am final series. It's a credit to them for how they've been super competitive in a higher class field, theoretically higher class field. So great job from those two.
Absolutely. On that point, Brian Stimson is sitting P9 in the championship, and Williamson is sitting P11. So yeah, absolutely fantastic performances by them throughout the season. You see, Stimson had a bit of a rough time in qualifying. He's down the field a little bit. Even Williamson down in P17. But yeah, absolute credit to them. It's I think it's a nice thrill to get called up to play with the big boys, so to say, and they've really handled it very, very well. So good to see.
Sure have. So as we're coming through the final sector here, we'll hand over to you, Peach, to call the start for us.
Thank you very much. We are ready to go for the final round of the Pro-Am finals here in Octane Online Racing Simrigs Sprint Series. Lewis Quigley is leading us to the line. He is side by side with Christopher Taylor, and right behind him we have Stefan Bechtold and Brian Kong, as we are about to go green for the final time in the season. The lights are out and away we go. Lewis Quigley with a very good start. Astronaut known for its prowess off the start, but he seems to have gotten the jump there. A couple of 3-4 wides in the back there. It looks as though Scanlon is making it 4 wide on the outside. Thaddy is sending it up the inside. This is going to end in tears potentially. A lot of bullying, a lot of side-by-side door banging, but so far so good. Nobody has turned quite around. One of the BMWs, maybe Chalmers, off into the sand, but he manages to keep it going in the right direction. Thaddy Malik has jumped up a couple of positions there. He did a bit of an aggressive move into the first corner, but they made it work, and so far there's a couple of yellow flags right at the back of the field. Bit of contact there between McLean, and it looks like Johnston, Scotty Rockford just behind them as well. Mike Denaldi, he is looking pretty strong there in a battle with Shane McLaws. Both the tic-tac BMWs there behind each other, Chalmers and Viney with a very good start. It looks as though Quigley and Taylor have settled down into P1 and 2, but further down the field we still have a couple of side-by-sides. Williamson on the inside there of Kidman, I think, with Stewie Matthews shouting at clouds right behind them, followed closely by David Neighbour. Side-by-side through turn 9, they somehow make it work. Stewie Matthews will have the inside into the hairpin. Who will be braver on the brakes? Tires will be cold. Neighbour very deep on the brakes, hangs it around the outside. Matthews keeps it clean, but he might lose out to Stimson here, I think, in a Mercedes, but Stimson does back out, does the smart thing there up the front. Lewis Quigley comes around the final 2 corners for the first time, and we are off and running on a fairly clean opening lap.
It's pretty well done by everybody involved there. A couple of yellow flags early on in the lap, but they've managed to catch the back of the field, so no significant disadvantage there. I'm sure there probably would have been a couple of numbers called to the stewards, and we'll leave that to them. But yes, really good start there to manage to go 3 and almost 4 wide through turn 1 and 2, but to manage to hold it with just a little bit of door-to-door Rubbins racing kind of stuff. I think it was a pretty good effort. So we're on board with Spidey right now as he's following Brian Kong, the 2 Ferraris line astern. Very nicely done there. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a case of settle into the rhythm now for the drivers and wait to see who jumps first for a pit stop. I think we've all got pretty decent gaps in the field now, so just see McLaws just apparently dip a tyre in the sand a little bit, but all's good. Can be a little bit dodgy to do that in the Macca at times, but no issues there.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good up the front. It looks as though Malik is the biggest gainer towards the front of the field. He has managed to get ahead of Bechtold, which is where he needs to be. Shane McLaws tries to pull one up the inside into the hairpin here. Mike Denaldi very, very light on the brakes, pulls it up into the apex beautifully there. Great defensive driving up front. There's a little bit of a train developing, so gonna be a tight battle. As we all know, this is not exactly a track that is renowned for its overtaking opportunities. Very, very tricky track to overtake on. Quigley at the front already starting to maybe build a little bit of a gap. Vladdy Malik trying to close up a little bit as we see a yellow flag in the background there. Somebody is stationary. That is John Stockton. He is facing the wrong direction, and I think he may have turned left into a right-hander, which is not ideal. maybe assisted there by somebody else. But yeah, it's been fairly clean. So Malik doing enough at the moment to take that championship, but there is still a very, very long time to go. Kidman and Willemsen side by side into turn 1. I was saying it's difficult to overtake. Kidman says, nah, not that difficult. And Willemsen said, I'll make it difficult for you if you don't want it. And they are still side by side going through turn 3. Stewie Matthews right behind them, trying to capitalize on anything that may play out here. Will he send it up the inside here, make it 3 wide? He's not quite close enough to get that done. Kidman will be very compromised through turn 4, but hangs on with a fair chunk of pace, and they will come into turn 5 side by side. There is another Aston Chris with us in the background, looking to join the game. Great racing overall here by all drivers involved so far.
It's fantastic side by side there for about 3 or 4 corners. Stu Matthews looked like he was going to pick up at least 1 spot, if not 2, but he's found himself back where he was at the start of the lap. So really good racing from the 3 drivers concerned there, and that John Rad catching up as well. Having a little look, showing the nose, and I think he's going to get the job done, unless Stu can do a over-under. No, gets the job done. Well done. Is that Kidman, perhaps?
Withers.
Withers it was. Okay, just Kunos updating issues as usual. But no, really good. Johnson with a 15-second penalty for causing a collision on lap 1. So there's the answer to one of the yellow flags or yellow dotted cars we saw going around, as Flatty puts the fastest lap in as well.
43.8 is a fairly rapid race pace, and we see John Stockton. He's the first driver to have pitted. Of course, involved in that incident, such a tricky pit exit. Ooh, he parks the car in a little bit of an awkward spot there, but luckily the 2 beamers there able to avoid him. But yeah, I wonder, I really look forward to seeing what the drivers, especially these drivers up the front, decide in terms of strategy. The gaps aren't particularly big. Looks as though Berthold is losing out a little bit to Malik at the moment, but as we saw Malik doing a 43.8 on that previous lap, so the pace is certainly there. But the question is, of course, how much fuel are these drivers running, and how long will they be able to stay on track and maintain that pace?
Absolutely. Just wondering who's going to jump first. Who do you think will jump first, and will anybody of the top 6 pit before, say, the 20-minute mark, do you think?
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see, I'm going to say Malik into the pits fairly early. Maybe dive in and try and get some kind of an undercut done. He's going to have a very, very hard time to overtake Taylor, even when he does catch up. Oh, Brian Kong gets removed from the race there by John Stockton, who unfortunately didn't get out of the way particularly effectively. And that is super unfortunate there for Mr. Kong. Stockton taking some alternate lines through the entry of the final sector there. But yeah, I'd say maybe Malik, based on the pace that he's able to run at the moment. I say that as Lewis Quigley goes even faster, so I'll just shut up for now, because apparently I'm not 100% sure what I'm talking about.
It does sound good, though. It does sound like you know what you're talking about.
I mean, exactly. You know, it's like wearing a nice suit to a job you have no idea how to do. It's just like, at least look like you belong.
Absolutely. As we see Kugley starting to extend a little bit, and that's John Rad, who's had an issue approaching the last corner, and Brian's pitting to maybe mend some of that damage that he got, as we have a very slow, apparently very slow moving Aston just ahead. I don't know what that was all about.
Replay here of Chris Withers. Is this a replay or is this live? Sorry.
It's live, as Williamson has picked up a 10-second penalty for a collision on lap 2. See, that's the commentator's curse. You talk them up. The AMs have come up and done a fantastic job, and you know, within the first 2 laps you get them a penalty. Whereas we see a bit of boop on the boot there. We'll leave that to the stewards, see what they feel about that one.
I think that was that slow Aston Martin that we saw going into turn 2 there after Le Boop de Snoot. But no, not too much harm done there. But yeah, so far, I mean, I have to admit that Barcelona doesn't make for exactly the most exciting racing in general, with the little bit of a lack of overtaking opportunities, but I think the strategy battle will certainly spice this one up today. Looks as though Kugeli, Malik and Chris Taylor really pulling a little bit of a gap on Bechtel. He's struggling on that race pace at the moment, not able to keep up. So there's one of two options: is he is just struggling pace-wise, or he is carrying a little bit more fuel and running a longer stint. Stockton, he is really having a rough old time. It's so frustrating when you have to dive into the pits early, and now you're a blue flag pretty much for the rest of the race.
Yeah, as someone who has to do that fairly regularly, it's really hard to get back into a rhythm when you find yourself, as you say, taking some alternate lines to get out of the way, and then you get to, like on the pit exit, you've got to get on the racing line, as we see a little bit of carnage in turn 2. Oh, hold the brakes. No, it's okay. All right. There's going to be some pain there for some little red marks going next to some car numbers. Oh, as we see some curb hopping going on.
Yeah, that curb doesn't have a tendency to set certain cars flying a little bit, and I think he just took a little bit too much on the inside there, and yeah, ended up on the outside. Unfortunately for him, there was a car already there, and yeah, the contact was made, but no harm, no foul. We continue racing. Stewards will do what they do. Yeah, so for those who are a little bit unaware or who don't quite know how ACC works, you will see next to the drivers' names there is a little orange box with a 2 or a 1 in it. That is the amount of pit stops that the drivers have left to make. Once they have completed all mandatory stops, it will turn green and they can continue racing for the rest of the race. As we see a big old send in the back there by, I think it was Kranich on Richardson, and he does make the move stick, and J-Rad follows him through, and Richardson loses 2 in one corner, so not his best corner, but a great move there from Kranich.
Yeah, pretty easy to get hung out to dry there. You just, you concede the position to the car behind you, and then the one behind them just follows you through because you're offline and you really can't do a whole lot about it, as we see a very interesting send around the outside.
Tiny bit of contact there between Rockford and McDonald not able to get it done quite yet. Rockford, a little bit of understeer there. That Ferrari is so fast through turn 3 and 8 or 9, so very good move there by McDonald. As we see, Brian Kong gets a penalty for that incident with Stockton, I think, so stewards have adjudged him to have come afoul of the rules, and he will have to serve that penalty in his first pit stop. But yeah, interesting question by Diables in chat saying, do you think the racing would be better if they had the other layout for the last sector? It feels like it would lead to far better battles. Now, I don't know, what is your opinion?
I think so. I think that, look, I'm not a massive fan of Sector 3. If they even go back a bit further and they change Turn 10 to what is now the F1 layout with a kind of wider, bit longer sweeping left-hander rather than a narrower tight one, and then flowing around the outside, just here actually. So if you keep going straight and just do a right-hand sweep, I mean the chicane is not an overtaking place anyway. It just causes rear-end damage basically through that last part of it. Cars might hold a little bit more speed heading down to turn 1, and the draft might be a little bit more effective in some of the cars as well. So yeah, I think probably it would be better racing. I certainly, as a driver, I'd enjoy it more because that last chicane is probably the least liked chicane in the entire game. But yeah, it would be interesting to see. I'm not sure we're going to get it anytime soon, but you never know.
I am very doubtful that we will see any track updates, to be fair. But yeah, I'm still holding out some hopes that potentially there's a surprise track or two coming in the next update, although there hasn't been any official updates or announcements, so unlikely.
What would you be hoping for, Paige? And Chad, what would you be hoping for? Anything? Anything that's not Zolder, perhaps? What about the changes to Zandvoort? Who'd be in favour of having the banked track for Zandvoort?
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, it'd be interesting to see some of the lines that people will take through turn 4 at Zandvoort, but yeah, I mean, we also have to go for tracks that are in SRO, and I'm not actually 100% familiar with the current calendar, but I mean, Hockenheim is back on the calendar, which for me would be a fantastic addition. It's a wonderful track. Magnicor is one of the ones, and I think Valencia. From what I understood, when the Imola update, the Intercontinental, what was it called, the Intercontinental, or whatever it was referred to, when Imola was released, there was supposed to be Magnicor and Valencia as well at the same time, but then obviously COVID had an impact on.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right there. I'm just wondering, would there be any US tracks come in? Something like Road Atlanta or one of the tracks like that. Not another Roval. I don't think we could go with another Roval, but something like so like Road Atlanta or Sonoma or something like that. Yeah, Sonoma, as Pat's just said in chat.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the American tracks, to be fair. I know people always clamor for, Virginia or VIR, Virginia International Raceway, Road Atlanta, Road America. Don't really know the tracks that well, so I can't exactly say. But yeah, based on the OR, as long as it's not Sebring, then I'm okay.
Not a massive fan of Sebring there, Paige? As we see a car introducing itself to the wall. Exit stage right, Brian Kong. Not having the most fun through the first 26 of 16 minutes of the race. As Kugli is having fun through the first 16 minutes of the race with a nice handy lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Laying down the law in terms of pace here, almost 4 seconds ahead of Christopher Taylor already, lapping at a absolutely mammoth pace. Running high 43s race pace, which is crazy to see in a Pro-Am class. Really fighting for a pro upgrade.
So we see Stefan has made a pit stop. It appears he's back in P27. So Stefan jumped after about 15 minutes, which is interesting. So the theory that he might have been heavy on fuel may not actually have worked out that way. He might have had an issue in car. May have started on used tyres, you never know. It has gone in after 15 and it'll be very interesting to see how he goes now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe he was just struggling a little bit in that opening sector, in the traffic, in the dirty air, which can have quite a big effect here. So problem for him is he may come out in some traffic. Where has he come out though? That is the question.
P27 at last look. Be interesting also to see if specifically Flatty, if Flatty jumps now that he knows that, if he knows that Stefan's come into the pits. It'd be interesting to see if Flatty jumps into the pits to try and cover off the move. Stefan's got Kranich in front of him potentially.
No, that's
Kugli. So he's actually in a very good spot. He's come out in a very good spot.
Yeah, so hopefully he can sort of follow him around a little bit and get in some quick lap times. But Kugli's tires will also start feeling some punishment. I mean, it's only 20 minutes into the race, but anybody who's done more than 2 laps on Spain knows the effects that it has on tires. So, but yeah, Bechtold will definitely be hoping that Kugli can pull him around for a couple of fast laps before he dives into the pits.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what the remaining members of that top 6 that we talked about before, how they actually do it, as we see a lovely little slide there from Kugli in the Aston. Stefan closing in nicely. Kind of torn, I guess, Stefan, now that he's blue flagged. Does he actually pass Kugli, or does he just let it go?
I don't think he'll have the straight line speed to get past him, to be honest. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Kugli decides. I mean, Kugli is fully in his right to just stay ahead of him, but looking at the track map, it looks as though he has already built a tiny little bit of a gap So I don't think Bechtel will be putting too much pressure on him, but it's fortunate for Stefan that Kugeli does have that gap to Taylor, because you can imagine if he came out and he was in the battle for the lead, essentially a lap down, it would have absolutely ruined his race. But yeah.
It's interesting that Stefan's pit stop has cost him that much time. It's cost him a lap. With a lap being a minute 45 or minute 43-ish, that seems an awful long time to have lost. Just wonder if something happened with Stefan that we didn't see. As we see Jesse doing his usual super defensive role again with McLaws and Bendyke right on his hammer. And as we saw last week, Jesse defended mightily for 40-45 minutes at Hungary, and looks like he's back at it again.
Yeah, hopefully for him, Barcelona is a little bit more tricky in terms of getting warnings, although you can still get them quite easily. Hopefully he doesn't dive into any drive-throughs again. But yeah, he certainly defended like an absolute champion last week. So it'll be interesting to see if he can do that again. He's under pressure from McLaws behind him. Jump on board here with Stimson, who is in a battle with Withers and Scani. Scani not quite performing as well as he managed to do last week. Lexus, I think, is a bit of a dog around here. It's quite good around Hungary. So yeah, not the ideal track for the Lexus. Not very good in these sort of mid-speed situations. As we see a car turn left into a right-hander, not quite sure what happened there. But I'm sure we will get a replay or something. That is car number 35, I think. Not quite sure who that is. It is Tom Kidman. He, one of the unluckiest drivers I've ever seen. Does he just have a big old moment in the Audi here? Tail just lets goes, tries to gather it up and just keeps it out of the wall. So nothing too bad to the car there, but yeah, just a weird old moment there. Such a strange place for the rear to let go.
It's not quite the old Audi things of version 1.7, but it's not far off it. Just Audi's doing random things in the previous iteration of the game.
Scani there basically taking the new layout line, taking a very wide line on the exit of the hairpin there, but it's not an easy place to get a warning there. Looks as though Withers is a little bit of a cork in a bottle here. He might have some rear end damage from that earlier impact. So it might be struggling a little bit in some areas. Stimson putting a lot of pressure on him. He's very close to the back of that Aston. It will be a race down the home stretch here. Will the AMG have the legs on the Aston? He moves all the way across the inside. Withers covers that off. Will he get side by side into the braking zone? Very difficult to spot your braking marker when you're so tight. Can he hang it around the outside? Does so far. They are still side by side into turn 2. Ooh, a little bit of a wiggle there from Stimson. Manages to hold onto it. Scani rubbing his hands in the background there, looking for any opportunity to capitalize here. But great defense there by Withers. Aggressive but fair.
Yeah, it's really well done there. Made his one move, held the line, didn't weave. Exactly what we want to see from drivers. So yeah, really well done there from Withers. As we see going very, very wide, trying to go in the outside, and Scani's looking at the gap. Just wondering from Mullock, who had Scani at 250 to 1 to win the championship prior to the evening. I wonder where you've got him now. As Stu Matthews picks up a 10-second penalty for collision on lap 11.
I think we got a view of that.
25,000
to 1. Okay, place your bets, everybody.
I still think, no, that's unders. I'm still going to say that's unders, as Williamson picks up another pen. Richardson's got himself a drive-through. So there's a few penalties starting to come in. I see the drive-through come up on screen, so I'm wondering if that's track limits.
Could potentially be. Scanlon with a great run on Viney here. Will the Ferrari have enough legs to get up alongside it? Viney takes a defensive line into the first corner. Little bit of a slide there, so easy to do that, but he manages to stay ahead. These guys are just dropping off the back of Chalmers a little bit, and Viney under a lot of pressure, and all this battling will be allowing the Arnoldi to catch back up and potentially join the fight. So these guys will be looking to get a move on. It looks as though Scanlon certainly has the pace at the moment, but just not able to get anything done. Chalmers there was very close to the car ahead of him. I'm not 100% sure who that was. If it's maybe potentially a back marker.
And not sure. It doesn't look like it'd be flatty from the time gaps, but could well be. Yeah, it's Stu Matthews. Fine. Chalmers is just cruising past as we see Scanlon having another look at Viney, who, as you and I both know, can be extremely difficult to get past, but in very, very legal and ethical ways. Tarks can be very difficult to pass at times, as he's proving again here for Scanlon, who I'm sure is getting frustrated. But he's also being very respectful and taking his time, so nice little battle brewing here.
Gotta feel sorry for Scanlon. He was the one who was stuck behind McLean all of last week, and now he's stuck behind another fat ass and just can't find a way through. And you can see Denaldi has joined this battle now. So all of this fighting between them, he's so close to him. Surely he will be able to get the run.
It's got to be hard to hold off this time.
Not quite that aggressive on the defense. He leaves enough of a gap, but the Ferrari just doesn't have the legs to get past. He's close enough to potentially keep it there into the corner. Viney pushes him so tight, but Scanlon manages to hit the apex there. Viney's still almost there, just keeping a nose there, and Scanlon is past. That's some great driving by both of them. Viney will be looking to catch onto the back of that Ferrari and try and pull away from Denaldi here.
Yeah, excellent view of that from Denaldi's car, and as we see him trying to latch on the back of Viney, not let him get too far away. He's done all the hard work to catch the battle now, and be interested to see if Scanlon can put some time on Viney, or if Viney can stick to the back and just have a really nice, interesting little threesome around the track here.
Yeah, I think it looked as though Scanlon certainly does have the pace on a Viney for the time being, but interestingly enough, nobody apart from Bechtold out of the sort of almost the top 10 basically has decided to really take that chance on an early pit stop. So going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
We're getting to around that 26-27 minute elapsed time, about that third race distance, so we should be expecting to see anybody to come in on what might be strategy A, perhaps. We just split the race in thirds, but obviously we've already seen Stefan have one pit stop, so interesting to see what happens with our top 5 or 6 now. It should be the next lap or two they'll be coming in if they're going to split the race in thirds.
Yeah, I don't know how you thirds 80, so it's probably 27 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, 26.7, but that.
There we go, Vladimir Malik into the pits. He had just caught up with Taylor again, and I think maybe decided it's a good time, get out of that dirty air and potentially get some clean air after a pit stop. It is a very long pit lane as well. As we see Tom McDonald there, P11 as well, just dive into the pit lane. Mitchell Bendike in the ugly mobile. He is running in P10 after some pit stop is played out, as we see a puff of dust and a car off track there. That looks like Denaldi and Viney may have had a little bit of argy-bargy there into turn 1. That has allowed McLean to capitalize as we get a replay here. Coming out of the final corner, there's a fair old gap. Not sure how fast the McLaren is in a straight line, but I know it's not renowned for its straight line speed. He's a long old way back, probably about 2 tenths behind at the moment, close to a 10th. Oh, very late on the brakes, and he manages to avoid Viney there. Great heads-up driving by both of them. Good decision by Denaldi to avoid the contact there.
Absolutely. And Jesse just sneaks through, so another one in the train of now 5 by the looks of it. So heating up again. Jesse still got his eyes forward, but defending like a demon. Now he's got his sights locked on Viney. Kovacs on Kovacs death is always a thing. It's always a possibility. So we almost there.
You didn't even finish the sentence and it nearly happened. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if Viney is maybe struggling a little bit on those tires or something. Maybe it's a good shout for him to dive into pit lane and sort of get out of this. He globbers the curb there, not exactly the perfect line. Then he runs deep into the chicane. That's going to compromise his exit, and he will be under a bunch of pressure, and he does decide to dive into the pit. So does Mike Denaldi and Shane McLaws in the background as well. No, sorry, he decided to drive into the wall instead of the pit lane.
That's not an ideal strat there from McLaws, I'm afraid. It's
Is that
suboptimal.
Was he hit?
He was encouraged. He was encouraged, apparently, it appears as though. So Yeah, just a good opportune time to head there if you weren't heading there anyway, as he clouts the wall on the way in and adds about 20 seconds of damage repair as well to the pit stop.
Yeah, such a tiny boop, but it's just the location where it happened. Not exactly ideal. And Flatty Malik here, he is behind Dickinson and Kranich on track. Kranich will be full position. Dickinson, of course, has completed a pit stop as he tries to sneak one up the inside at the final corner there. Now, Kranich has under no obligation to let him through, and this is always the risk you have when you pit earlier than drivers behind, is you can get caught up behind him, but although Kranich is saying that he's a very smart driver, and look at Christopher Taylor, how far behind he is. Flatty Malik, that is a good 3 or 4 second gap that has developed through these pit stops, so not 100% sure if Taylor maybe just had a very poor stop, maybe got moved or something of the like, but yeah, certainly he was a second behind and he is now well clear of Taylor.
Just wondering if I saw a little flash of the headlights there from Flatty when he was overtaking Kranich, which he's not actually entitled to do.
I think he was flashing Dickinson, to be fair, because Dickinson was later than the Porsche there.
Yeah.
In his defense, in this case.
I'll leave that to the stewards. I'll leave it at that. But you might well be right and give him the benefit of the doubt, perhaps. But yes, even if it was Dickinson with a car in between, Dickinson is not blue flag to him because the car in between would invalidate that blue flag. So yeah, interesting. I'll leave that one to the stewards if they saw it, or if somebody called it. If not, well then no harm, no foul.
Mitchell Bendyke gets a penalty for sending McLaws to his best friend Barry R. Stefan Bechtold has managed to hold on to Kugeli, so Kugeli's tyres obviously struggling a little bit here. Bechtold on that fresher rubber is really going to lose out here now. So he'll be hoping that Kugeli decides to dive into the pits sooner rather than later. There's a big gap, so I'm not sure if Malik will be able to undercut quite that much, but the reality is that he doesn't have to. He only needs to stay ahead of Bechtold and he should be able to consolidate the championship.
That's it. I'm still trying to figure out how Bechtold lost almost an entire lap on his pit stop. There must have been something that happened that we didn't know or we didn't see because Flatty's only fallen back to P10. Yeah, I know it's 10 minutes later into the race, but there's an awful long way to drop back until we see Kugeli into the pits for the first of his mandatory 3, and that's an interesting send.
That is Kovacs on Kovacs, the neighbor on Zadvaini. I think there will be some words exchanged in the team speak, but they carry on racing. And that will allow McDonald to sort of maybe join that fight as well. Let's see what happens. He's a long old way back. Very, very, very late on the brakes. That is a that is a robust move, I should say.
Very much so. And I think good awareness there from Viney as well. I mean, he didn't completely turn in, knowing that I think if he did, he would have ended the race for both of them. But yes, it was an interesting send there from Dave.
What pit entry is more scary, Spain, Spa, or Japan? None of the above.
Can I choose Zolder, please?
Yeah, that is the only answer. Well, Zolder and Brands, to be fair.
Yeah.
Zolder is scarier, but Brands is quite easy to screw up. That is Flatty Malik. I think, no, that is John Stockton. Never mind.
Yeah. Brands, you're less likely to get rear-ended. Like Zolder, you can very easily get rear-ended heading into the pits. Just with the proximity to that last chicane.
I don't know what you mean. That's never happened to us whatsoever.
No,
Certainly not something we've experienced.
Alton and Brands from Gorilla.
Alton isn't too bad. Brands is tricky because there's that little freaking weird chicane. Spa isn't too bad because you're coming in so slowly. So as long as you're not a complete moron, you should be able to get it done without dying. Kota is a good shot. What about Mazzano? Nobody's mentioned Mazzano. Mazzano is a very tricky one to get right as well.
You can throw Snedderton in there as well. I think Snedderton's not great with a little funky little kink in it before you get to it, and we had someone in. I think it was Split Blood decided to try and make an overtake in pit lane and just drove straight into the wall at about 140 k's an hour, which wasn't ideal, but I think they would say Snedden wasn't a great, not a great track.
Well, good shout on Laguna as well with that weird turn in, especially if you have one of the first boxes, but then you also need to throw Kailami in there. Yeah, just as I said, Gorilla types it in chat, such a tricky one. If you're one of the first pit boxes there, it's so easy. I remember in the 3 hour enduro a couple of seasons back, I think it was Jake Baldwin, when they were in the lead and he came into the pit lane at Laguna and he did a little 360 just as he took the turn, and he still managed to stay in the lead, so it was quite spectacular to see actually.
Yeah, I've seen a few Kailami races where people have lost it on cheetah and reversed into pit lane. Definitely seen that happen more than once.
Oh, that looks like an Audi, maybe Kidman. It's only Kidman and Willemsen in the Audis in this race, so he's certainly had a bigger incident than he did in his previous excursion at turn 3.
As we see Viney once again under pressure, this time from T-Mac. And the Ferrari is just doing its absolute best to go right around the outside, and looks like it may get it done. Viney takes a little bit too much grass on the inside of turn 1, and T-Mac gets the job done.
Viney not battling that too hard. As we see, what is the gap from Malik to Kugeli? It's about 6.2 seconds. So that has pretty much maintained through the pit stops. Taylor must have had an absolute nightmare pit stop, because he has really lost out quite a lot. And yeah, as you said, Bechtold, he's still running in P15 after everything has sort of played out here, so certainly something must have gone wrong on his pit entry.
Yeah, there's obviously something we haven't seen, but I'm sure Stefan will let us know in chat later on. He's good for jumping in chat post race and having a bit of a discussion about what went on. So we'll leave it with him, and whether it was a user error or it was a bit of an unsportsmanlike issue from somebody, we'll just obviously have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, we can see there's quite a few drivers ahead of him who have completed their pit stops, so yeah, he'll be fairly upset with that. I mean, I don't think he had the pace to really challenge Malik today, so it looks as though Malik would have had enough in the tank to take the championship from him, but he certainly wanted to be up there near that top 3 to try and challenge for podium.
I've just got a message from Glenn Germain. Based on time, Stefan had an incident at lap 8, sector 2, and pitted straight after. Slow pit stop, probably fixing damage. So there we go. That might be the answer. Thank you, Glenn Germain. Thanks for the heads up on that one. Much appreciated.
Always good to have some insider info. Of course, Mull unfortunately had a bit of an issue with the APC today, so the standard replay PC is not working as it should. Whoa, okay. Was that self-inflicted? It's just Porsche things. Yeah, he just lost the tail on the way in and then turned left when he was supposed to be going right. So yeah, that's a fair old chunk of damage. Yeah, unfortunate there for him, but unfortunately can't blame anybody but himself for choosing the Porsche.
It's probably harsh but fair. I mean, it's so fast at so many tracks, but there has to be an inbuilt death factor to be that quick, I would have thought. Not that I've ever driven it for more than 2 laps.
I remember we tried it for a Kailami 9-hour 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
And I did 6 laps in practice, and I came out of Sunset facing the right direction once. And I was like, maybe this is not the best idea for an enduro race for 9 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I just can't drive it. I can't. The engine is in the wrong place. I know Sean Miller will shout at me for saying that, but he's not here, so that's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I just can't get along with it. I'd much rather drive an Audi or something.
Yeah, particularly around Kyalami. Audi's a lovely thing to drive around Kyalami.
Absolutely. We see a question in chat from Octane Online Racing from admin. What is the best pit entry? We've discussed the worst. What is the best? I would say Imola. For me, would be the best.
Emil not bad. Yeah, nothing really jumps to mind. Spa's okay, but it's tight.
Yeah, it is.
And you're talking anything with Spa and pit, it can get in the bin because it's 14 kilometres longer than it should be. Donington's okay.
Yeah, Donny's nice and simple, at least. Nothing complicated about it. Imola, Donington, Suzuka. I wouldn't play Suzuka up there. I wouldn't play Barcelona up there.
Suzuka, Barcelona, Hungary, Nerbs are all similar type entries.
What other tracks are there? Bathurst is quite tricky. What are the other tracks? I keep forgetting what tracks are in the game, actually. Wait, Paul Ricard?
Yeah,
Paul Ricard
Monza's easy.
Monza's easy. Paul Ricard isn't too hard.
Oh, it's not great. I'd much rather the F1 one there as well.
Oof, another big old moment there for Berchtold as well. So, yeah. Sorry, I was looking on the wrong stream for a second there, so a little bit of a delay as we see Pete Chalmers pitting out of the lead. And how far behind the drivers he was fighting with will he come out? That is Simon Scanlon.
Really close.
There goes Scanlon. Scanlon got the undercut done, so that was a big old undercut from Scanlon. He was 2-3 seconds behind Chalmers before the pit stops.
Was indeed. We have Jesse McLean was up there as well. He came out in P12 after his first stop, so he was in P2 when he pitted. But starting to see.
He did have a penalty as well, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah. So DeLeo has still got a pit stop, and Kranich has still got a pit stop to serve to be down to 1 and on equal terms with everybody else. They might be the last 2 to do their first stop, I think. And it's at half race distance, so very interesting strat. Go long and then two splashes at the end to finish.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how this plays out. Nobody really has any idea what to expect at the moment. We get a question from Jai Fisher. Is there any tracks the Nissan GTR is quick at? Off the top of my head, I would say Imola. I think that's one where it's a fairly strong car. I can't really say anywhere else that it's good. It's not that bad, not particularly awful.
Yeah, I agree with Fluke. Look, everywhere that Lucas Burst drives it.
Yeah, okay, but you can ask that question about a wheelbarrow and it would still be true for Burst as well. He just freaking drives the wheels off of anything, so... Yeah, it's gonna be Ben Dyke. I mean, from fighting in the top 5, he's now battling with the ugliest car on the grid. And he won't be happy about that. I mean, Ben Dyke will be happy that he's not in a split with Kegley anymore, or with Chris Cudi, so there's nobody outshining him for ugly. But the problem is, with some of the ugly liveries we've seen in the past season, I've become sort of desensitized to what Ben Dyke's done. It's really not good.
Needs more brown. I mean, you've seen the ugly liveries I've run, and particularly on the Macca, it needs more brown.
I mean, it doesn't, but if you want to make it ugly, then yes, it needs more brown.
Yeah,
it certainly doesn't need it.
Yeah, brown and like teal wheels. Oh, it does get better. It does. Cricky, it absolutely does get better. The worse it is, the better it is.
I just threw up a little bit in my mouth when you said teal-colored wheels, but yeah, it looks as though the top 5 is pretty settled down at the moment, but we saw in this first round of pit stops how big the undercut was there from Malik and even Scanlon as well. So I'm wondering if some of those drivers, having seen how good the undercut worked for the drivers they were racing with, may change their strategy up a little bit and dive in a little bit sooner than they initially planned to try and gain some time back or get a little bit of a benefit from it.
Yeah, still plenty of strategy to play out in this one. Still just over half race distance, so a long way to go yet. There's Kugli with a 43.7. It's probably lap or 2 after coming out of the pits, I would have thought. So just about prime moments for the tyres. So set up, ready to go. As we see, top 5 is very settled. And DeLeo still to pit, but very, very tight looking up there. I'm just wondering if our numbers master has a bit of an update about where we are championship-wise around the halfway mark. So obviously it's looking like Flatty would be in the lead, but just where Kugley and Bechtold and even Scanlon was sitting around that with Taylor as well. They're all up in that area.
I'm just wondering, Kugley is about 40 points behind. And what is the points difference? It's 150 and 130, so he'll only be gaining, what, 20 points plus maybe another 3 or 4 from qualifying. So not quite enough. He's going to need Malik to have some kind of a disaster here if he wants to potentially take that win. I think at the moment Malik looks like the safe bet if you're placing any money on it. You see David Neighbour here under all sorts of pressure from Tom McDonald in that Ferrari. He's already had a couple of battles with some Kovacs drivers, so the battle continues here with David Neighbour. And will he be able to get something done? The Ferrari is incredibly strong through this corner here. As you can see, he's able to stay so close to the back of the BMW. Is he close enough to potentially try and move into the hairpin? He is not in this case.
Yeah, Neighbour looked like he got a really good run out of there as well. Just put a little tiny bit of an extension of the gap to T-Mac. Like, T-Mac is right back on his rear bumper now. He's even like half a car length closer coming around the last corner. It's going to make it very difficult for Neighbour to hold off at T1.
Yeah, as we saw earlier, the Ferrari isn't exactly a weapon in the straight line, so he will need to be very, very close. He is very, very close, but will he be able to benefit enough from the slipstream here? I don't think he's quite close enough to get a clean run into turn 1, but maybe if he starts licking the stamp right now, he might be able to send it. He is going to not be close enough. We'll have to potentially wait another lap.
Yeah, I think he just clipped the curb at the chicane on the turn, and it just cost him that half a car length that he needed to be right into the toe of Neighbour. But as you say, reset again, get nice and close after the last chicane and have another dip.
He seems to be able to stick nice and close to him, just needs to be close enough in the places where it matters. Gets a good run there out of turn 4, coming down into turn 5. Such a tricky corner to get right. Need to get on the power much earlier than makes sense to your brain. And then coming down into a very tricky segment of corners. Yes, so easy to invalidate, so easy to take too much curb and potentially bounce out a little bit. But both of them handling it expertly now. Let's see if McDonald can stick close enough. Touches the grass a little bit on the outside there. That might compromise him. That could potentially be a warning, but he is very close to Neighbour here. Will he try and poke it up the inside? He's not quite close enough to get that done. He still stays behind. Neighbour not really defending particularly aggressively, as we do get an update here on the current standings. So as it stands, Flatty Malik will be on 390, Kugley on 378, Christopher Taylor on 330, Bechtold 315, and Scanlon on 285. So Kugley needs a way to find another 12 or so points. I'm not sure how he will be able to achieve that. He could pray to the gods of the internet to disconnect Malik, but that would be a fairly cruel fate.
Wow, that's a curse and a half. Very, very.
I said he could do it. I didn't say he should do it.
Yeah, it's out there in the it's out there in the atmosphere now. As we see McLaws and Scarney still at war. They seem to have been battling for most of the race. With Crispy Bacon, Steve Lewis caught up to the back of them as well. So nice little trio here.
I don't think that McLaren is going to have much in terms of pace to throw at that Lexus down the straight. You'll know Lexus might not be the fastest in a corner, but put it on a straight line, and it certainly does go. McLaws not. I'm pretty sure he actually lost time on that straight there. Big old moment for Scarney coming out of turn 2 there, but manages to face the right direction.
It's probably one of the very few car combinations where you could be in the draft and lose time to the car ahead. I think maybe only the Lexus and the McLaren, and probably pretty much anything in the Porsche. But yeah, it's so good down the straight. It's so difficult in other parts of the Lexus at times, but yeah, managing the torque is the biggest issue in the Lexus, obviously.
Yeah, no, I recall at Paul Ricard when we were prepping for the, what was it, the 8 hours, and in practice, I think it was Matthew Herod in the Lexus. I was right behind him coming onto the straight, and I was like, okay, this is a good run. I should be able to get him here. And then the gap just grew by 2/10 over the straight, and I was in the BMW. But as soon as we got into the final sector here, as we get a replay of Tom McDonald and David Neighbor, is there contact? Looks there was a tiny little bump there, nothing too much in that. Will he be able to get something then into the final sector here? Neighbor goes fairly defensive. McDonald up the inside of the chicane, not a place that you want to be doing that at all, and exactly what you could expect to happens there. And a little bit of an additional contact there with Mike Donaldi, and then he dives into the pit lane. So a bit of a comedy of errors there from McDonald, but we keep racing.
Yeah, a dive there is really only going to cost the two drivers the positions on track, really. I mean, nothing good is going to come of sending it in that chicane. We see it so often. In fact, I've very rarely seen a successful overtake in that chicane. It's just way too dangerous.
Yeah, no, it never pays off, to be fair. And I think we have a fairly rare sight here, something you don't see out in the wild very often. 4 Kovacs drivers, nose to tail. Now, I don't want to put any curses on it, but I don't see how this doesn't just end in tears for somebody.
As Jesse just bounces off the curb and has Scotty Rochford for company. Oh, have you cursed it like at the next corner? Not quite, but it's not far off.
I was hoping for it to be fairly instantaneous. This is actually quite disappointing. But anyway, they keep on racing.
Could feel it in my bones. It's going to happen.
I mean, these guys will all be, most of them will be in the team speak talking to each other. So maybe some negotiations going on, trying to negotiate a position. I'll give you 24 foot rubs if you let me through on the next straight. None of it seems to be happening at the moment. Viney with a pretty poor exit there out of the final corner. That's going to allow Jesse McLean onto the tail end of him. And Aston Martin is not very good at accelerating, but it does have fairly good top line speed. He's right under his rear wing, moves out of the slipstream, coming into the first corner. Tries to brake late, sends it up the inside. Viney gives him a little bit of space. McLean loses it on the apex there. That was a bit of a weird incident there. And Rockford says, thank you very much. I'll have me some of that.
Yeah, I think Jesse just got his right wheels just to the inside of that curb and just hooked him around a little bit. Brown flag moment, but yeah, nothing major. Let Scotty Rochford through. So yeah, I think the hated you right. There must be imminent Kovacs death. There's 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and Kovacs from Kovacs death. Really, it's going to happen. It's a matter of when.
I mean, we haven't seen some proper Kovacs and Kovacs there for quite a while, so maybe the curse has been broken. I don't know. Did somebody?
It was until then.
Did somebody sacrifice? That's an esports line there by Jesse McLean. I don't know if somebody sacrificed an Audi on an Alto or something, but it seems as though things have worked out pretty well so far. Meanwhile, up at the front, Lucas Quigley is 13 seconds ahead of Vladimir Malik. He is absolutely flying. I would hazard a guess and say him being a Pro-Am for much longer is not really possible.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Yeah, potentially if you win a podium here in the Pro-Am finals, I'm just going to guess that maybe you've got yourself a ticket into Pro class. I would have thought. Obviously, it'll be up to those on a higher pay scale than us to decide that. But you know, if you're running against the best of the best Pro-Ams and you're finishing on the podium, you're probably not really a Pro-Am anymore.
Certainly, especially when you're running laps that will be competitive in the top 10 of the Pro class. I would say that tap on the shoulder is not too far away. As we see Shane McLaws, he must be getting bored of the back of that Lexus, but unfortunately for him, he has not been able to find a way through. David Neighbor dives into the pit lane, Stewie Matthews as well. So a couple of the drivers towards the front of the field, not at the very tippity top, but some of the top 10 are diving into the pit lane for their final stops. And we will start seeing how the strategy has played out throughout this race.
Absolutely, and as Pete was mentioning before, for anybody who hasn't seen much ACC before, you can now see that Neighbour and Denaldi have got little green rectangles next to their car numbers as well, showing that they've completed their mandatory pit stops, so they don't need to pit again, and as well with those few down the bottom as well. So Bechtold, T-Mac, Withers and Lee Perkins and Kidman. So getting close to about a quarter of the field, maybe almost a third of the field, having done both of their stops. So around that 26 minutes to go. So seemingly around that third race distance to go, but still quite a few at the top that are going to stay at the top even after they pit, still to do a pit stop.
Of course, if you feel the need to learn a little bit more about something like Jason just mentioned, how ACC works and how to drive very fast and make a car go brr, don't forget to join the OOR Discord. There should be a link somewhere below. I think there is some very exciting things coming up, namely an academy where we will be teaching drivers everything from how to install ACC to how to drive very fast in ACC, how to drive inside of other cars, not in that way, inside of a battle pack, inside, I'm stuck on inside at the moment, in traffic is the word I was actually looking for, learning a little bit of racecraft, learning basics of setups, how the cars work, so yeah, there will be a lot of development taking place. We already have our rookie series where you can learn the very basics of driving and race in an organized fashion with live stewarding every Tuesday. But the academy is just that little step further, adding a little bit more detail, getting down to the nitty-gritty of how everything really works. So be on the lookout for that. Don't forget to join the Discord.
Absolutely can't recommend it highly enough for those who are just getting into it. It is a fantastic place to learn. As we see Scarney and McLaws continuing their apparently never-ending battle. McLaws again trying to catch up close enough on that Lexus, but front straight is going to cause all kinds of damage. He's not going to be able to get it done there. So.
It's deep from Scarney. Oh, 15-second penalty for Pete Viney. I don't think we saw that happen, did we?
I don't think we did. I thought you mentioned that you might have seen something off in the distance with another one with when we were watching another battle, but yeah, I definitely don't remember seeing that on screen.
Yeah, I remember we saw him running a little bit wide as Chad McLaws has finally had enough of the back of Scarney. Gets a very freaking hairy moment into the pit lane there.
I mean, that's a line.
Adds a couple of seconds of damage to his pit stop there.
Is he not consistent? Did he not do that when he got shunted and spun at the pit entry last time? Did he not also clip the wall on the way in? He's just adding damage, pit stop times on the way in both times. But you can obviously see the frustration being caught behind Scarney.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to make it up in the pit lane and unfortunately probably cost himself a bunch of time there, so not ideal. But yeah, oof, that's a big old curb. Ooh, McDonald, does he hold on to it? Somehow he keeps it facing in the right direction. Some fantastic wheel work.
There's a great catch from T-Mac, who I see has a penalty for an incident previously. So seems to have popped up in the last couple of minutes or so, unless I completely missed it earlier on. So,
yeah, can't remember exactly what that was for, but yeah, we have.
It would have been at the last chicane.
Yes, most likely.
Been at the last chicane, yeah.
It was on a neighbor, if I recall correctly, or yeah, I think it was a neighbor. So we see Rachel Bendyke here, right on the tail of Pete Viney, who himself has that 15-second penalty, goes very deep into the chicane there. Bendyke is very close now. Let's see what a McLaren can do to a BMW. We've already seen what it's unable to do to a Lexus. Is there more in the tank against the BMW coming down the straight? Look at that big old fat dining table of a rear wing.
It is a very wide car, but surprisingly enough, the Macca is an extremely wide car as well. It's almost if not the widest, it's one of the 2 or 3 widest cars in the game.
It's wide, but if you look at them side by side, it looks like it's comical how big the BMW is in comparison, especially how high it is.
Correct.
Spidey versus Taylor is apparently a battle that is taking place as well, as we see.
Spidey is in
Conan.
front of him. Yeah.
So Spidey has really come alive in this race. So he's played the strategy perfectly. Christopher Taylor, I think he'll be practicing some pit stops after tonight. He's had a bit of a nightmare when it came to serving them, unless there were some things that we didn't see. But yeah, he certainly lost out to Scanlon at the moment, and that would potentially put Scanlon in P2 at the moment. P3, sorry.
Yeah, he's only just under 6 seconds behind Flatty, so he's right up the top. Looking very, very good, Spidey, at the moment.
Yeah, Scanlon really had a good season so far. He's had some very good performances, and yeah, making that Ferrari work very well around here. You see Kugli dive into the pit lane. So now we will get a sort of final indication of how big that gap will be to Malik. It was many seconds, so maybe it will only be many seconds now. I'm not sure how much they will close. Has a very good engineer team. Very drunk engineer team, I mean. Chalmers moves back into the lead, and he will be shouting stop the count. Unfortunately, there is still 20 minutes remaining in this race.
And
so
Kugli is rolling out of the pits, so he's at a very fast stop.
Vladimir Malik coming around the final corner there. Kugli already at the first corner, so pretty much the whole main straight between the two of them.
Yeah, looking like, I don't want to jinx anybody, but it's looking like it's Kugli's to lose from here. In race terms, I'm just wondering if Spidey can get himself ahead of Flatty, what that would do to the overall standings. Malik is cursing me for everything he's got at the moment, but yeah, maths is fun. Be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, if Spidey can actually get in front of Flatty.
Fortunately, he does have about 5.5 seconds to go to catch up to Flatty, I think. Maybe even more than that. Kunos. No, 5.5 seems about right. So, yeah.
It was 6 seconds a lap and a half ago, so he does appear to be bringing it down a little bit. If Scanlon passes Malik, Kugli leads championship. Well, there we go.
Huh, okay. So, yeah, Kugli... Will he do sort of who was it, Lewis Hamilton or Rosberg, who was backing the driver into the drivers behind to try and win the championship? I think it was Hamilton in 2016. But yeah, unfortunately for him, the gap is about 12 seconds, so he will need to screw up quite a lot for that to happen. Jesse McLean taking the alternate line out of the final corner there. And there's another Kovacs driver in this. Okay, now Stuart Matthews is not in this battle, unfortunately, so it should remove some of the potential death at least.
Yeah, should. Won't necessarily, but should. It's been the operative word there. We've known it to not make a difference before. So, yes,
so why? Wait, why? That's not updated, is it? Okay. What?
It was...
Now it has updated. Okay, now it's updated.
Interesting.
So that was qualifying. So, Stimson here in the AM class. I think he will... I don't think there's an official AM class championship in the finals, but that being the case, he will still win the theoretical one. And a very good finals performance overall. Certainly putting in a big old effort to get that black tag next to his name instead of a red one.
I think that's probably a given for our AM class winners. Throughout the series so far, through the 4 splits. I imagine all 4 of them will probably earn themselves a promotion to Pro-Am, and a well-deserved one it would be as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Conan, I will give you credit as a good engineering team if Scanlon overtakes Malik in this race. Otherwise, you're crap. Basically, that's what it comes down to. So, currently, top 3 have yet to pit, and then we have Kugli running as the leader, 12 seconds to Malik. That gap from Scanlon is now only 5 seconds, so he's taken another half a second out of him. But time is quickly running out. There's only 17 minutes remaining, which, with my very, very quick and very, very poor math, will be about another 10 laps or so, maybe.
Yeah, yep, 9 to 10 laps, I think. It's interesting. I'm just wondering if any of the Kovacs guys, the top 3, will do the quote-unquote big brain strat and pit on the second last lap. Wonder if they think it might actually keep them closer to the top of the standing. I'm not quite sure, but has been known to happen before. I've seen drivers do it before, where they leave it to the very, very last minute to pit, knowing that the leader will cross the finish line and a whole lot of cars behind the leader won't get to do that extra lap and therefore won't catch the car that was in the pits. So it'd be interesting strategy to see if they do that.
You're asking for big brain strategies from Kovacs. Have you met Kovacs, brother?
We are checking.
Big brain is not exactly how we are generally described. Gap to Scanlon and Malik, 4 seconds. So Jesse McLean really exploring. He's paid for this track and he will use all of it. Some of it is not even on the track, but he's certainly getting his most money out of it.
I mean, let's be honest, he certainly explored and used all the track at Paul Ricard as well in the endurance race. So
I don't think this is the time to bring that up, but then again, it's always time to bring it up. As we see Malik leading the championship at the moment, Kugeli is 8 points behind Taylor. Bechtold really losing out quite a bit at the moment, so yeah.
So maybe the only one likely of having the big brain theory, Scott Rochford, is the only one of the 3 that is still out there. Chalmers and McLean have pitted. So we'll see if if Scott Rochford does anything along those lines, or he might just pit with 10 minutes to go. Yeah, we'll see how he goes.
Looks like who is that ahead of it? That is not McLean.
He might have just come out of the pits, potentially.
No.
McLean's still in the pits. Yeah.
J-Rad on... I'm not 100% sure who that is.
Kugeli?
Marshall. No, Marshall.
Yeah.
There we go. That's cost Scanlon a fair chunk of time there, I would say. He's really hoping to get through drivers who are not fighting with each other. What is going on with the timing tree at the moment? It's showing... There we go. It's updated now. Still 4 seconds the gap.
So he'll be within sight now, so just that little bit more encouragement that Spidey might have needed to have that target acquired kind of mentality. But, 4 seconds in 14 minutes is very doable.
Especially once you start seeing that car on track right ahead of you, that sort of knowing it's close enough, it's within touching distance, that's when you get that extra couple of tenths a lap and potentially maybe close that gap.
And we get a great example of that from Malik on broadcast, getting that through for us, so you can see exactly what Spidey's seeing, and he can see Flatty ahead of him on track. So it's just that little carrot that he's chasing now. So see what effect that has on him on the next lap or 2.
So you can see Flatty just there going through the chicane. Takes a little bit too much of that curb. The curb there absolutely unsettles the crap out of the car. So probably not ideal in a Ferrari, but let's see what that gap is as he crosses line 4.199. So he did lose a little bit on that lap. Not sure if that's related to the battling that took place ahead of him. As we see, Scotty Rockford is also in the pits. So apart from DeLeo, who stayed out the longest in the first stint, that would be pretty much the whole field who has completed their pit stops.
So we are looking at Kugeli, Malik, Scanlon, Taylor and Chalmers as our top 5 on track when Rochford kind of gets himself out of the way through his pit stop.
Yeah, so I think Kugeli will be shouting encouragement to Scanlon as hard as he can at the moment. Fortunately, it seems as though Scanlon's pace has sort of stabilized a little bit. That gap not really coming down at the moment. But maybe, just maybe, he can find something in these closing stages and potentially win the championship for Kugeli. It does show you how competitive this sort of whole field is. With Kugeli had one bad result, and that's potentially taken him out of the championship. Scanlon 3.5 now to Malik. And battle is getting closer and closer.
Very, very much so. It'll be a grandstand finish, quite literally for the championship.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Bechtold with a big old moment again there, Porsche being Porsche, and he's all over the back of Neighbor. So all in all, a good recovery for Bechtold here after a rather upsetting end to his first stint. But still finishing P8, nothing to sneeze at. He won't be happy with it, but he'll be happy with sticking it out and sort of finishing the race in a respectable position still.
Because you never ever quite know. I mean, there could be, Scanlon could catch Flatty and they could have an incident in overtaking, or you just never quite know. So Stefan's sticking with it right till the very end, which is, which you'd hope every race car driver would do. Particularly with a championship on the line, but just in general as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, as you said, anything can happen, and based on how the gap is coming down, being 3 seconds now, we have about 6 laps to go, I would say. Maybe googly almost into the final sector now, so yeah, maybe 5-6 laps to go. So still a lot of time to catch up there. Well, not a lot, but quite a few laps, and given the pace he's been catching up with, we see Stockton here, he's really had not one of his most fun days in a race car, I don't think, after fail. Ooh, Dorifteru, and he saves it. I don't know why people drive the car that just wants to kill you all the time.
Absolutely. As we're focusing on Jesse, who's still got Van Dyke behind him. And Rochford just ahead, as we have a car. Is that Stockton out there?
Yep.
Taking the alt route again. Doing his best to not get involved in a battle. So hopefully not costing himself a speed token to do it.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating having to be a blue flag for, well, essentially 95% of the race after an incident that wasn't really your own fault. So yeah, he'll be hoping these 9 minutes go by a little bit quicker than they normally do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're hoping to see the end of the race by now. But again, sticking it out, and full credit to him. Yeah, that's what we love to see. Things didn't go his way today, but he just stuck it out.
Sorry, I was going to say, I wonder what happened to Viney, but then I remembered he didn't have a penalty, and you can see how badly that's affected him. He's dropped down to P15 after the pit stops. Gap from Scanlon to Malik has grown a little bit again. I think Scanlon maybe got caught up in that battle there between Kong and Rad. So let's see this lap if he can start closing that gap again. Malik is doing enough at the moment, and he just needs to do it for a couple more laps, and he will officially be the Pro-Am champion in Octane Online Racing Sprint Series.
Yeah, it'd be the hardest, I'm going to say 5 laps of the season for him, I would have thought, mentally at least, just making sure he's keeping his speed up and hitting his apexes, and just making sure he's not feeling too much of the pressure. There's bound to be pressure on him, but just making sure he's ticking all those boxes of what he needs to do, whilst being mindful of Spidey behind him, who could be could play the bad guy.
Absolutely, and it's a testament to how things have progressed for Flatty as well. He used to be sort of a fringe top 10 Pro-Am driver, and now here he is winning the championship potentially if things continue going his way. So credit to him for keeping on with the practice and improving his racecraft and his pace in general. And you can see where a little bit of hard work can really move you up the field, and look forward to seeing him in the Pro class next season and seeing how he can do up there as well.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a challenge stepping up to the to Alien class, but look, he's certainly showing all the signs of being able to do that right now.
So what is that gap now? It's back down to 3.1 seconds. There is 7 minutes remaining. Luis Quigley is coming into the final sector. So we have potentially, I would say, 4 more laps, maybe?
Yeah, it's Yeah, probably 4, I think. So, yeah, that sounds about right. Just trying to do the quick math in my head, but thinking is hard. Thinking and speaking at the same time tends to be a challenge.
Thinking and speaking and doing math at the same time, even
It's
harder.
just, you know, it's a horrible thing to try.
Aren't you a math teacher?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, well, at least you don't have an excuse. I have an excuse. I'm dumb. That's fine.
See how much effort it took me to actually answer the question while I was doing math and thinking. Now I'm a math teacher, so yeah, there you go.
As they come around the final corner here, what is the gap? 2.98. It's not coming down quick enough. Scanlon is going to have to turn on the afterburners if he wants to catch Malik just ahead of him there up the road. You can see the car there. You can see the car getting ever so slightly bigger. And he'll certainly be pushing as hard as he can. But time is quickly running out for him in this chase for the win, or for the position.
And we see there sector 2 is where Scanlon is mainly gaining on Flatty, so it'll be interesting to see if he can pull out 0.3 or 0.4, because he's going to need to do at least that each lap that's left. So go back to Stefan and watch his recovery drive.
Under pressure from a Lambo. Look at that closing speed of the Lambo here. Almost going to have enough speed to be passed by the braking zone, and he pretty much is a little bit deep into turn 1 there. Compromises turn 2. Hopefully the curb doesn't bounce him. A bit of a poor exit there, but the car is in the way of the Porsche and he's not able to get the position back. So good move there from Rockford. I don't think, wondering if Bechtold's tires are maybe a little bit tired or something, or he's just a little bit tired of this race and just wants to get it over with. Wasn't really defending that with too much vigor. And Kugeli coming around the final corner. We have 4 minutes 45 remaining. Mr. Math teacher, you can work it out, because I think it's 3 laps, but I'm not sure.
I'm going with 3, but it could be close. Could be close.
Yeah, that's good hedging your bets. That's smart. And the gap from Scanlon to Malik is 3 seconds again. So I think, unfortunately for Kugeli, Malik has doing enough to secure that championship. Kugeli has done everything in his power to take the win, or to take the championship, but unfortunately there are other aspects at play. A move around the outside of the hairpin, if you don't mind. But great exit from Rockford there. Will he be able to nip back ahead? Oh, Bechtold onto the curb there and manages to stay out of the back. It's very tight racing there, but yeah, good racing overall.
And Jesse's just sitting there waiting for something wrong, and take both of those spots, so close the gap right up as well.
Don't forget Ben Dyke is not too far behind this little pack as well, so any little incident could potentially cost you 2 or 3 positions if you are not too careful. So people need to be a little bit careful in this battling.
Scanlon's got the gap down below 3 seconds again, but it's not tumbling quick enough, I don't think.
Porsche is so good on the brakes into turn 1, they're so late on the brakes, manages to pull it into the apex nicely. This time Rockford with a better exit. Gap is 2.6, so closing.
Yeah, it's that middle sector again that Malik was telling us that Scanlon is quicker in, so it'll be interesting to see if he can hold that, as we've got some little cross-checking going on there, which is bit of hard racing, which we love to see.
See a yellow flag there in the second sector. Kugeli has crossed the line with about 3 minutes remaining, so that should be 2 laps.
Indeed.
That's the math I can do. Car number 20, I can't see on the leaderboard. I think
20 is usually Cranage. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, a Bechtold goes very, very wide there, and he loses out to McLean, potentially to Ben Dyke. Oh, almost cuts off the nose. I think he lets him through, realizes he's on the dirty tires, doesn't want to cause an incident by going a little bit deeper than he anticipated. We go on board again with Kugeli. He has been pretty much faultless today. Qualified on pole, he has the fastest lap at the moment. He has been absolutely dominant so far, so great performance from him.
As we're on board with the shouting at clouds legend himself, Stu Matthews.
And put it a lot of effort into his livery, and I'm sure he's only shouted at a couple of clouds while making it. But yeah, good performance from him. I think he was involved in some incidents earlier, but P22, not exactly where he wants to be, but he won't be too upset with it. Quite an interesting livery. Speaking of penalties, Will Dickinson gets served with a 15-second penalty for a collision on lap 42. Oof, that's very wide by Malik there. And yeah, I think. Sorry.
Horrible thought that we might have seen DT flash up against his name there for a track cut. But managed to get away with it. So interesting to know how many speed tokens Flatty might have spent already, but got away with that, so no harm. Keep going. Lap to go.
Survive for one more lap, yeah. As we start the final lap here, Kugli is in the first corner now, but we have to start thinking about a driver of the day, and I'm going to throw it over to you, JLS, so I don't have any pressure on me.
Well, it's going to be pretty hard to go past the race winner, but I actually don't mind Scanlon. He's picked up and done the absolute best he could today, and you know, he's obviously worried Flatty. He hasn't really ever got close enough to you know, to get to an overtake position. But from I think P6 at the start to P3, he's done everything he can, and maybe potentially Stefan as a recovery drive from the incident early on. But yeah, I'm going to go with Scanlon for mine for driver of the day.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I mean, it's as Gorilla said, Neighbor was one of my calls. He's had a very good recovery after a pretty sort of poor qualifying. And yeah, Scanlon is very hard to look past. He didn't qualify the best. He qualified in P6, I think, but he's had a very, very good race. And we are on board here with Thaddy Malik, who will be your championship winner. But before that happens, Lewis Kugli is coming into the final chicane for the last time this season, and he will be crossing the line to take yet another victory. An absolutely flawless performance from Lewis today. He'll be very, very happy with that. He did everything he could to take that championship, but unfortunately for him, whatever he did was not quite enough. Thaddy Malik will be taking the win as he comes around the final corner. Look how close Scanlon got to him. Just not quite close enough, and Scanlon crosses the line in P3.
Yeah, great effort from those first three drivers to run it so close, and congratulations to Flatty. It's obviously not official yet, but it will be very soon. There's no penalties outstanding, I don't think, for any of the top three. So well done, and we'll have that list from Malik shortly once the race is completed. But yeah, fantastic effort from everybody, and yeah, I wasn't aware Neighbour had gone from 22 to 7, so that's a great effort as well. They should be right up there with driver of the day contention as well. So.
And apparently quite a bit of fuel saving as well, but they will cross the line here in P7 and P8, and Christopher Taylor, P. Chalmers, Mike Donaldi is P4, 5 and 6. These guys will be followed fairly closely by Jesse McLean, Mitchell Van Dyke and Stefan Bechtold, all within very close vicinity. And this looks like Lee Perkins behind, who is not part of this battle group. Tom McDonald will cross the line there in P12. And then we are on board here with Chris Withers, who's in a very tight battle with Crispy Bacon, Mr. Steve Lewis himself. Eric Scarney crossed the line in P13, Shane McLaws P14. He'll be very fed up looking at the back of that Lexus there. Pete Viney, after a very good first half of the race, unfortunately, after serving a penalty, does cross the line in P15. Stimson will cross the line in P16. And Steve Lewis does enough to hold on to P17 with Chris Withers just behind him, and that will be the last finishes of this race.
Green light, give us OK.
And that sees us through to the end of Pro-Am in Season 11. So we'll have a look at the final standings for this race. So we have Kugli in P1, Malik P2, Scanlon P3, Taylor P4, Chalmers in 5, Donaldi 6, Neighbour 7, Rochford 8, and McLean 9, and Ben Dyke rounding out the top 10. And we'll just await official confirmation of the standings points.
So I think we can say with some form of certainty that Malik will be the championship, or the championship winner. Kugli maybe about 8 points or so behind him.
P3 could be interesting with Stefan being in P11 and Spidey in P3. And we've thrown the safety car as well. Awesome, love it. Yeah,
I
so
wonder,
just
did Taylor do enough to maintain P3? I think he could have.
I think he probably has. Yeah, I think that's likely to be the way it goes. Taylor,
He was
3.
54 points behind Bechtold before this race.
Yeah, so probably
No.
Taylor 3, Scanlon 4, Bechtold 5, maybe.
That was very squeaky.
It was very squeaky. It's my thinking voice.
Okay. So, yeah, but while we wait, don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We have, there we go, Vladdy Malik will take the win with 400 points. Lewis Gugli just behind him on 391. Stefan Bechtold manages to hold on to P3, 341. Christopher Taylor in P4 with 323. And Simon Scanlon moves up one position to P5 in 304 points. So that is confirmation of your championship standings there. Congratulations to Malik and to the whole Pro-Am class for a very, very interesting championship, as illustrated there by the closeness of the field there. 3 drivers within 1 point of each other. Very, very close battles throughout this whole pack here. Eric Scarney in P7, that has to be pointed out in that bulky old Lexus, and he'll be very, very happy with that result. But yeah, as I was saying, don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We have the Pro Finals, where we will be deciding the championship there. As you can see, Chris Chang currently leading on 251 points, Lucas Burst 227 points, Corey Sweet, Rialto Ristofani, Demario Hasnam, very close to each other. There only 4 points between the 3 of them, and then Philip Akita, Austin McNeil, Brad Cook, Benjamin Hignett, Jean-Pierre Sonicus. He sounds like an absolute moron, but yeah, a lot to play for in the top 5 there, so it should be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Don't forget to tune in for that. And then, of course, next weekend we have the Donington, I want to say 8 hours. I think it's 8 hours. I'm going to go with 8 hours. We have the Donington 8 hours, which is coming up. Qualifying for that will be finishing on Friday night. And then don't forget, next Friday we have the Donington shootout for the top 10. So lots of exciting racing coming up. And, of course, the North American sort of final round of the season. I'm not sure if the EU has another round, but I think they do. So yeah, lots of racing to come up a little bit later. Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Likewise, Peach. Thanks for great evenings of racing, and yeah, great job as always. Well done, and congrats to all the winners in Pro-Am. Well done.
Yeah, congratulations to everybody, as we see the message coming in from Race Control there. Thank you, chat, for watching. Thank you for joining. Thank you for interacting. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you like what you see. Even if you don't, smash it anyway, because that's what hate watching is. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you tomorrow for the Pro Finals.
See you, everyone.